everyone. Good evening. Bear with me one moment while I get everyone else on. And the name of this is going to be, what you mad at? You want to argue? Hold 1 second while I get started on the other ones. How's everybody doing today or this evening? Everybody doing okay? Hey, Bigo. Hey, YouTube Live. Hi, everyone. So the name of this is, what's the big deal? Why are you all so mad? What's the big deal? Why are you all so mad? So, I got stuck here. Hold 1 second. I'm stuck over here on Facebook, y'all. Bear with me 1 second. So y'all tell me what y'all got going on. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. So again, this is going to be about, I'm going to kind of talk about my last live, as I'm getting a lot of feedback. So we're going to see what the deal is with that and see why everybody's so mad. See what the big deal is. So, okay. Yes, this is Sarette Pierre. I'm known as the Freedom Igniter over at Sarette Pierre Enterprises. Well, pretty much I ignite wellness, help survivors heal, bring people to wholeness using pretty much biblical healing of God content. And so I think it was November 11th I did, hey Nisi, I did a live and I pretty much talked about things that I was happened to have to deal with something personally with a family member, and out of it birthed a need, an obvious need for codes of ethics, right? And when I say codes of ethics, don't we all, those of us at work, we know that we have handbooks and rules and things that mostly always we have to sign off on. We pretty much, they're enforced and they're usually in written form, right? So ever since I said that, and I'll go over some of the things I said, there's been a lot of pushback. And you wouldn't even believe some of the things and some of the people who had so much to say about something that should be very basic, right? And I don't know if it was because of the invite that I mentioned after the Lord told me to add this to my services. And I had talked about a person who I didn't name who had invited me somewhere where there was going to be a conference, and some of the conference topics, I guess that in itself made some people mad. It happened to be a church, right? And because they are wise, they have bylaws and things like that in place. And at that church, they had a national conference, and some of the topics, as I went over before, were things like truth-telling, lying, deception. Is a Christian always obligated to tell the truth? Another session topic was virtual church ethics, biblical principles in a metaverse age. Another was Christian perspective on war, peace, and self-defense. The principles and practice of pastoral ethics. That's a good one, right? And then there were others like civil disobedience, where's the line, church and government intention, the 10 commandments in this church age, continuity and discontinuity, and, just basically how the ethical issues that should be in your church bylaws. And although the previous live on November 11th, was about how my services, though they would be geared towards or for Christians, it would help anybody who didn't have certain things in place. And I'm finding things like we out here with people who aren't bonded. We're out here with people who don't have basic stuff in place. And from a business or a corporation, a company perspective, you playing yourself. I mean, you really are. And so it behooves us as consumers or as followers, whatever, congregants when we look at church, just whatever role you play, right? You got to be sure things are in place. And so, or, because God forbid the local grocery store be able to take care of you in the event that there was a safety issue in your own church. And a lot of this comes from, and they talked about this at the conference, baby, how we've been taking so much scripture out of context for so long and misinterpreting the word and God's original intent, which remains the same about so many different things, to include whether you should take another Christian or a fellow Christ follower or someone in the body of Christ, usually because you fellowship with them in the same church or they have alluded to being a Christian. And we need to really try the Spirit by the Spirit and see if it's of God, because that's half of the issue or most of the issue. But everybody who says, Lord, Lord, is not serving him, okay? Everybody who says, Hosanna, is not serving him. And so don't let anybody play you and tell you, because the Holy Ghost is within you. Don't let nobody tell you or convince you that you should not file a suit, when necessary. Take people to court, when necessary, right? Because the whole thing is to pray and allow God to tell you when to let him fight your battle and what that means. You have to learn to ask him, why, what are you teaching me? What does this mean? What do you need me to do? And so don't let anybody, right? I don't care what role they have or play in your life. I'm finding a lot of them don't even have their stuff in order. And I don't mean just cleaning your front porch and sweeping your front porch and, making sure your heart posture is pure, which is an issue of itself. But I mean, it used to be you would be caught between two opinions if church is a business or, church should be a business. Some people say yay, some people say no. But baby, if you got your doors open, you better have some stuff in order, okay? So I got a lot of, people was a little salty with me when I said that, I'm a problem solver. We all should have, from experience as in our youth, there are things that we pretty much have in our toolkit that usually can solve any problem in the world, right? And so with that being said, if I am obeying the Lord and he is telling me that to do this at a service, right, then that means there's something going on, right? There's a need, or there's going to be an uncovering of unethical things. And so if I'm saying that I'm going to do something in the area of safeguarding your integrity, of course, I'm not sure what right now. I'll probably just have a PDF and add it to my website with further information structurally about how I'm going to talk about it, whether it's a part of my speaking services. But there is a lot of things that need to be dealt with ethically when it comes to all organizations, okay? And so so much has happened. I also talked about, it's so funny, knowing your rights, right? Knowing your rights. You should know for your state, what protections you have. Even I mentioned my husband, who pretty much knows everything about being a African American in the United States and what his rights are as it relates to profiling. If police being policed a lot, right? And defunding the police. We all can sit here all night and talk about how we feel about that. But you better know what questions you must answer and those that that you don't have to answer, and they hope that you don't know your rights, so they can trip you up, right? And so it behooves us, right? And I went into even talking about things like defamation of character, right? Know if you are in a negative light state or not. You have to understand what false light privacy state means. Um, you know, cease and desist, whatever it is, because we're coming into a place where we're going and what's the getting ready to happen worldwide. You have to have your stuff in order. And that I went into having cash on hand at the end of my last live, and to break that up, 50s, 100s, but a lot of 20s, a lot of 10s, a lot of 5s, and a lot of 1s. That's getting ready to be a lot that we will be seeing, and it shall not come nigh you if you're on the right side in serving God and living an upright life. But you will see and hear, and if you prepare, many of us have gardened because of what's going to happen with the food. But yeah, in as much as whether it is general character terms, if you're going to tell your story online, I went through that a little bit when it comes to copywriting protections and videotapes and all of your technical artistic works for those of us who are content creators, and your books and short stories. Have a copy of the article, and send it, get it patent, do all you need to do when it comes to understanding trademarks, right? And because people are vultures out here, y'all. They are there's so much going on, and you don't want to be caught out there, okay? And that is the same as much as agencies, organizations of all types who are smart enough to have their stuff locked down, right? They're smart enough to have their ducks in a row, and don't be a Christian or leading a Christian movement and don't have some certain things in place. And if you feel those things are religious in intent, right? Like bylaws are a thing of the past, they're for select denominations, then keep thinking that. Keep thinking that and see what happens. Keep not having things, safeguards in place and things written. Because, and we could go on about whether it's written or whether it's enforced or both, but it would behoove Christians, and I only know about my belief system. I don't even believe in religiosity. It's too legalistic, and the Pharisees were very legalistic. If you know anything about the Bible, and that spirit is really self-righteous. Ones who want to point out different laws that we know about, but they can't keep the law themselves, right? And so, like everything is a sin. You're going to hell for everything, and they don't incorporate God's love. Although He's a God of war, God of judgment, and a God of wrath, He is a God of love. And the Father's heart is how much He, is truly in love with all of us, and especially His sons. And that is not gender specific. That's His sons and daughters. And when the world or anyone chooses not to accept you, or they reject you, God always accepts us, right? He does not condone sin, but the gospel of Jesus Christ is the gospel of grace, which is the New Testament. And as we know, the final commandment was to love God with all our mind, body, and soul, and love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And when we do that, it covers all of the 10 commandments. And so people who want to hold you to the law, and the 10 commandments to the point of your detriment, just so that they can appear in a self-serving way, very righteous. We are only justified by faith, and our righteousness is only by God, right? Through Jesus Christ. And so I said that to say it's his righteousness, and he told us to be holy, meaning that only through his holiness can we even come anywhere close to being holy. So it's a decision, and it's a decision to live upright before God, right? Because if you live upright before God, you're going to live upright before man. And with that is integrity. And so some of the integrious things, unintegrious, y'all know what I'm saying. And just terrible things are going on behind the scenes in a lot of these places and spaces. So these agencies, these organizations, these churches, right? And so, just know that you have time, but not much time to, get your articles, whether it's an LLC, whatever it is that you may have or want to start. Maybe you're praying about starting a certain thing, whatever is going on, and whatever that thing is that God is telling you to do. Like he told me to add another service, right, to my existing company, which is pretty much a consulting company in nature. I am pretty much an orator all the way around. I'm a healing evangelist, licensed and ordained. And actually, the people who know, which is most of where I live. Before I knew I was called to the ministry, I was really about it in the streets. Really a justice seeking believer who was going into social justice in such a way that, I really was an abolitionist type. And with that, I was underground a lot and on the ground a lot, standing up for injustice and for people, and nothing's changed. So we'll just leave that there. But know your rights, right? Even with the conference theme, that someone who didn't even know the unjust thing that happened to me and one of my family members. And I mentioned that like 7-8 months ago. My husband always picks on me because I have so many alerts that sound alarms through my calendar that I've added, little decorations, confessions and commands that I say out loud. When they sound off, the alert goes off. And about 8 months, the Holy Ghost had me put, God, give me the wisdom to execute justice for your people. God, give me the wisdom to execute justice for your people. Well, lo and behold, that is exactly at least the beginning of what he is having me do. And I knew I was going in, and if you know anything about the 7 spheres or mountains of influence, I knew that he was adding an arm to the ones that I had identified with, and the ones that are part of my business and ministry. Out of the 7 spheres are family, business, religion, media, arts, and entertainment. Okay, as I said, I'm a speaker. I was a child actor who went back into acting in LA in 2015. I'm a writer and brand ambassador and things of that sort. Just an all-around content creator. And so when I understood that God needed me to do this service, I hopped on it because he had already kind of prepared me for going into the government or the politics arm of the 7 spheres of influence. And when I say that, I don't mean politician. I mean, like I'll take things as far as the White House. And if anybody knows me, chain of a command means if one person says no, you go to the next person. That's like I told you, I'm about it. I mean, I'm real fearless, just a freedom fighter. I've been like this as early as I remember, first, second grade, right? I stood flat-footed. You couldn't ask me anything if you didn't want to know the real answer, right? One of those kids, like, I'm gonna call your mama, and I was like, call her, and I would tell you the phone number, right? So, with that being said, everything that seems like, don't believe everything you see. Be led by the Spirit. As we used to say, everything isn't as it seems, right? And so you be prepared, right? Don't expect, and I just went through this. Don't expect protection from people who only want have selfish ambition and vainglory, and yeah, as one of the topics said, truth telling, right? This is one whole name of one of the topics, and then I'm going to go over the sessions that I didn't have or tell you about last time. But again, I'm repeating, truth telling, lying, and deception is a Christian obligated to tell the truth. And so with that in mind, I'm going to just briefly go over some of the workshop sessions when I was invited to this awesome conference where God was just confirming that I am going in the right direction and my obedience is opening up many doors for me and many promotions. And so this was a great thing to be a part of. And so workshop sessions, I gave you the titles. And so the people, and these are men and women of God, pastors. It actually was for leaders, pastors, people who are licensed and ordained, and as I am, and I'm affirmed, like I was predestined to preach as a little girl. I just didn't know. I just thought I just was, impartial and unbiased and stood up for the underdog at all costs. So some of the topics or the names, where is the line for civil disobedience, right? Church and government intention. The 10 Commandments in the church. This is another one. The church age. We talked about that. Continuity and discontinuity. Let me find some that are not the same as the actual titles. The bigger topic titles. Domestic abuse. Whoa. Remember I said that my, wow. I forgot about that. My mantra, if you will, or my tagline for my company, CENTRIC PR Enterprises, is igniting wholeness. Wow. Helping survivors heal, and those are abuse survivors, using biblical healing of God content. And I'm a fire starter. God knows I've always been. I mean, I'm just thizzled. I just am, right? And so when you're a fire starter, and then you incorporate that with the fire of God, then there's a power, a supernatural power that God imparts and imputes to those who are humble and those who always check their heart posture, right? And they're not puffed up. And so because of that, we have to do better with things like domestic abuse. How do we respond biblically, right? And lovingly, but we have to do something more than what we've seen. And sexual abuse is a whole nother topic because we've been sweeping stuff under the rug at the church. Pedophilia. And see, there's a new breed of us who ain't going to allow that stuff to happen. You can't just keep sleeping, with people. You just can't and ain't. Okay, so I say that to say, the Sermon on the Mount, applying Jesus's own teaching. Wow, you think that would be simple? We think we would not have to talk about that, but God said there would be false prophets, false teachers, right? That's why we have to try the Spirit by the Spirit and see if it's of God. That's why He told us to judge people righteously, right? Not by appearance. That's why the people with the green hair and all the piercings are laying hands on people at Walmart and they are falling under the power of God and getting up transformed instantly, free from crack, free from AIDS. Y'all playing out here. But anyway, okay. So Jesus is teaching, politics, the preacher and the pulpit, immigration, a complicated debate for Christians as the rhetoric increases. Wow. Law enforcement and lawlessness, defending the police and weaponizing the DOJ, which is Department of Justice, and the FBI. Another one was help to prevent us from getting too close to the line. How to avoid any P word, plagiarism, right? Charge in our preaching and publishing. I talked about that last time. Y'all can't just be out here churches making music with your worship team, or I don't care if it's a ad you put in on Craigslist, right? Because I've seen that happen too when you need a drummer, right? I don't care if it's Facebook Market. If you don't have certain things in place, right, and you sell those digital downloads, right, and there's no waiver being signed, these people and their, their talent, their voice. So this goes over being prostituted for your gifts and being pimped, right? We've all heard, many of us, leaders, God love them, God deliver them, we're praying for them, coming to, people in the church, the congregation, and saying, that they had a dream, and so now you need to be the leader of their dance team, right? Because they saw you dancing in a dream. And so if we keep going that way, where we're not reading our word, right, and we're not studying and applying the word, annotating the word, and we are being led astray by the voices, right, the sensationalism, the emotionalism, and the alike, right, we can't do this going forward, right? It's too costly. We're going into seasons where people are going to just be dropping dead. Okay? This is how serious this is. So get your house in order. Okay? The grace, God knows there's been decades and decades of God's hand of grace on us. I'm not saying His grace is running out. I'm not saying that He is not full of mercy. But we are not, as a body of believers, repenting. And so the grace is lifted in many of the people who say they love God in many of their lives. And so with that in mind, we also went over the need for biblical counseling, 3 keys to keep your church out of court. Did they say 3 keys to keep your church out of court? I'm gonna tell y'all a story real quick. I remember I had a Mercedes Benz, a little big body, 550 CL something, CLS, I don't know. And after a while, I had an associate, someone I knew of. He went to the church. He had a retail store, and I used to do business in it, have little meetings in it, and a little showcase some things in it. And he kept saying he wanted to take over and assume my payments, right? He wanted to buy the car. And so that was what he offered. And so he had kind of, weighed me down, because actually there were some things that were going on with the car. And, I was up front. And so, long story short, he didn't want to pay for the car. Okay? And so, because I am who I am, and I know whose I am, and I talk to God often, like all throughout the day, along with repenting all throughout the day, I went to my pastor first, only because we went to the same church. And so I was going to give him, let him pray into if he wanted to, take this by the reins and schedule a meeting, like you do at work, right? You hear one person's side, in corporate, the workforce, right? When they have corrective actions, right? And then you hear the other person's side, and then you hear God's side, right? You go and you pray. Who lying? That's how you got to ask. Which one of these are lying? But anyway, right? Structurally, right? There's a protection there, safeguard, safety measures like they talked about in the employee handbook, things that are smart to do and have in place. But anyway, I digress. And so my pastor at the time was like, don't do, I forgot what he said to do, but it wasn't enough. And it was real light. But he ended it with, don't take him to court. I don't know who he thought who he thought he was talking to. Because if the police who didn't escort me to the guy's house, if we didn't come back with my car, then you knew the next measure was going to be to take him to court. Right? I didn't need to pray about that. Right? I didn't. I mean, we have been so controlled and so manipulated, especially in the African American church. I'm just going to tell y'all that. I'm telling you from an African-American standpoint. Anyway, and you know what? What's interesting to me, if you're from certain parts of the United States, y'all can, pop off if you want in the comments, and I'm just going to say the South. Let's just say the South, the Bible Belt. In school, growing up, there are other parts of the nation, other areas that are taught to think. Critical thinking is a part of the curriculum. Like, you know how we had class participations in some grades, we were actually graded on it? Well, there are places in the United States, I cannot speak for the world and other nations, where it's a part of the curriculum, and it goes a little something like this. Junior, oh, you read about what in Black history and slavery? What are your thoughts? Share with the class what your thoughts are. Junior, that's interesting. Good point. I like how you came up with that. That makes a lot of sense. But baby, in the South, you supposed to believe what you read. Now, I don't know how well that's gone for some of y'all, but that ain't never went well for me. Okay? So, I even now, I'm a follower of Jesus, right? Some people say they're a believer, but usually that's the only time I say follow, right? Except when I click follow on social media, and I pray about that too. Okay, I ain't real big with, and they'll play you. They'll try to act like you are rebellious and a loose cannon and a wild ass, and that is inscription. Yeah, but that's the game. You got to know the game. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so I actually told the pastor, I said, no, you can cancel that. I'm going to the police first, because I knew my rights even then. I'm going to get escorted to his house to get my car, because he ain't paid me in 3 months and he ain't taking my calls. And every time I try to go by his retail shop, he would never be there. So that was convenient. He, had other workers all of a sudden. But you want to drive my car, right? You want to ball out, and you want to just be balling. I'm sure he was going to the club and stuff in my car. So because the Holy Ghost was with me, right when we got there, the garage was coming up. He was pulling out. So, I'm thugged this. I get out the car, right? Because I had to follow the police there. The car was rolling. My other car. I had a Land Rover. My other car. It's rolling down the street, because that's how about it I am, right? Like, this joker, you just gonna come out the garage all willy-nilly like I ain't trying to call you. And without going into further detail, because, you can also do other stuff, in certain areas, just have your stuff, if you're strapped, just have your stuff, have your stuff licensed and, have your permit or whatever. But I got my car that day. So I say that to say, y'all don't let these people have y'all out here. Just be wise, right? Wise as a serpent, humble as a dove, because they're wise in their deceit, okay? And I hate to have to go here, but the response, baby, they are mad at me. You see my title. I got to change it or put it in Instagram. They are mad at me. And I'm like, as I said tonight, what's the big deal? Why y'all so mad? I'm going to do a code of ethics. What's the deal? Why I shouldn't do it. Why you trying me? And I don't like to say that. And I really have been big about making sure I don't say stuff like that, probably for the last 10 or 15 years. Because it's prideful. You have to be mindful not to operate in pride. Okay? Because God says he hates pride. Right? He didn't say he hates the whoremonger. He actually loves and is married to the backslider when you leave him, and go back into the world. But pride he hates. Oh, God. Did y'all know that? Pride says, I don't need you. I can rely on my own abilities. I can, depend on myself. I don't need you, God, right? And a proud look, right? A haughty look. Like, I know she ain't doing this at 10 o'clock, and I know she talking about me. Child, that's self-righteous right there. Prideful. Why don't you just keep making sure your heart is clean before God? That's what we all should be doing. Because you trust me. When I get off here, God gonna tell me because I'm gonna ask him what I shouldn't have said, what I said too much of, what I should have said differently. Okay? Because I'm gonna ask him. Y'all better have your heart, get your hearts right before God. This ain't the time. Okay, so I'm back from having that discussion. Have been getting a lot of, child, they is mad at me. People done try to set traps. Let me tell y'all a story. Child, I don't know why they don't know that God be telling me stuff before it happened and warning me. But that strong pride spirit, I don't know. So yeah, they just, oh God, y'all. If y'all just knew just all of the threats, child, all of the threats and all of the, I don't know why they think fear tactics work on me, because I'm fearless. Okay. But anyway, yeah, they done planted stuff at my house, child. Okay. So look, check this out. Now, my tire keep being flat, right? And so then my husband will fix the tire, and then we'll come out in the morning and the tire's flat again. Oh, okay. But do y'all have cameras at y'all house? Do y'all, Niecy Pooh? I don't know you. I think y'all got cameras. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, I just want to tell y'all another thing that somebody said, and it made so much sense. A man of God, and I'm not gonna call these people out because I didn't get permission, and I don't want them to be associated with anything I said, because they don't need all this backlash. And anyway, okay. So someone said, posted the other day, it said rebranding, and I added this: rebranding and big marketing budgets at churches have become a replacement for repentance. Oh my God, how dare us? Oh my God, lest us forget. Whew, child. But for the grace of God. I want to also talk about, as I get ready to try to sum it up, let me tell you how good God is. Anybody see Dr. Phil on the other day? Dr. Phil had a whole, as my daughters say, a whole wife, whole husband, whole broadcast in this case. It was called Cult Vibes, C-U-L-T, Cult Vibes. And they were talking about, dangerous and deadly cults. And they talked about stuff even like network marketing, just companies that are using people to make, and they use manipulation tactics. So I just want to share this with y'all, to make you a believer, and how you get drawn in. And, just know that this is so popular and common. And what they use is, indoctrination. So we've talked about church, and so even network marketing, exercise clubs. There was a lady from a fitness club, and they had like a subscription, and she talked about, and even a yoga instructor, how he lured his followers. And, what they usually do as they conspire, because they're either false teachers, false prophets, or they, you can work for God and be fired and you still think you're working for God. That's a real thing. Yeah, pride is real dangerous. So they'll take your time, your money, and suck you in, right? They'll suck you in and erase your individuality by giving your power away to them. Then you understand and find out that, hopefully all will find out that they just have been a part of and attacked by, when they speak up, of course, they're attacked by other people in the group. And I don't know why I'm just saying a code of ethics sparked this for me. But yeah, if you speak out against something, you gotta, I don't know why people don't understand, you already prepared, or you already expect, I'm gonna say it in a nice way, you already expect that there are going to be people, just God bless them. You got to pray for them, and you got to love them, and it shouldn't be hard. But yeah, they're going to try to send the mob, the goons. Yeah, like, you know how they do in the streets? Yeah, they do that in the church too. It's called spiritual authority abuse. Or, yeah. I don't think people understand that I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. I done seen a lot. I grew up in the charismatic movement, boo-boo. Yeah. I done seen a whole lot. Then we were called the Word of Faith. You know, the TV ministry types. Yeah. Yeah, we was on TV and everything for years. So yeah, the TV evangelist ministries. Yeah. So yeah. So they'll come and then they'll try to, I don't know what they try to do. And I don't know why they think people be scared. I guess some people do be scared. But anyway, yeah. They be coming at you like goons, y'all, like for real. And it's like, okay, really? Do you understand how wicked and evil that is? Let me tell y'all another story. I remember in the workforce, I'm such an entrepreneur. These are the things that made me not mix well and gel well with corporate. I had about 2 different employers try to recruit me or ask me to let them know when other colleagues, same level, right, colleagues, were late. We wanted me to record what time they came in. Who gonna do that? You know what I said? You need to come here earlier. I ain't doing that. Who gonna be a mole for you? Who gonna be a spy for you? Because that would mean that I got to act like everything is everything and smile on this other colleague's face, knowing that I'm recording their time because you're trying to set them up and fire them. And yeah, you might have given them many warnings. Anybody worked anywhere where you had to have, when they used to give you points, demerits, what's the other thing they call them? But anyway, that was between me and them. I used to also check people, and I know y'all think that is a confrontational thing, and that's the issue because we have to confront sin as believers. We have to confront spiritual error. Remember we talked about the pedophiles earlier? Yeah. Just as we have in the community, you know, uncles who molested children and they never went to jail. That ain't happening no more. No. It's not even in the church. That ain't happening, Captain. I don't know who the previous people who say they love God and profess to be Christians, I don't know what they was thinking. I don't, because we ain't about that life. But anyway, yeah, so, yeah, the mob, spiritual mob, that's how you know how weak. And I hate to use that word, because even God talks about timidity. That's a brokenness issue. That is not a characteristic of your personality. That comes from trauma, right? I wish there would be any one person that I idolize and put them in that type of position or in a preeminent space, I guess, or place in my life that would make me be ready to attack another beloved soul of God or even may not serve God just because they speaking out, just because you mad as a leader. I'm going to tell y'all, this loyalty thing, this false loyalty and this false humility thing is going to catch a lot of people. They're going to be caught out there for real. Because your identity and your image of God is so weak, right? How God sees you for real, and how you think he sees you, has you out here lying and buying, right, for position, right? Or wanting to keep a position in something like a church. I can kind of see it in corporate America when you making hundreds of thousands. You don't bow down to Baal though. Don't let greed get you caught in there either. I might halfway see it, if I'm looking at it TV and I'm following the storyline, but I really can't see it. But in church, so you can cover up somebody when they fall out in the spirit. Okay, I don't know what that's about. But anyway, yeah, they mad at me. They real mad at me. And I ain't said nothing. This is the most I said. I ain't even said nothing. I just said I was going to do a code of ethics. what's that? Piety codes is another name for it. I don't get it. Gosh, I love everybody. But anyway, people, as they said on Dr. Phil, they are unquestionably devoted to and committed to its leaders. How hurtful does that have to be to God? That we would be more committed to man than we are to him. And that's why you can't be out here letting people beat you over the head with serving in these ministries, y'all. If you serve to the point that you don't have time to sit in the presence of God, right? For instructions, for adoration, for exhortation, to seek his face, to just love on him, right? That's an issue. You should be able to 5 hours and not be preempted because you got to go to a meeting at church. Come on now. Only do what God tells you to do. Just like we say, only what you do for Christ will last. You ask God. He might want you to do one thing and do that well. Right? Not 7, 8 things and you leave one meeting to go to another meeting. He is not pleased with that. You leave one church meeting to go to another church meeting on the other side of the building that's not paid for. Come on now. Y'all don't do that. Don't do that. Because these people out here, just as they said on the Dr. Phil show with the Cult Vibes broadcast, they're persuasive, right? I don't even like the word influencer. Because so to me, influence just automatically can mean negative. But that's just me. That's me going before God saying, keep my heart pure. Because I don't want to be, I don't want to influence nobody. So I don't even like the word. Even as a content creator, they're going to have to call me something else as my, follow. As I don't even like the word follow. I mean, that's how you need to be. Like, every little thing, you like, right? Yeah, my tribe, as my tribe grows in number, right? And the acting courses and all the different things, I have a saying as I'm the freedom igniter. I teach people how to ignite your freedom, right? And so the courses and all of the different things that I'll be doing, the manuals and modules and all that stuff, right? Let me never be, right, like that in business or ministry. Let me never be exploitive. I don't want nothing if it's going to make me, right, do anything that's not pleasing to God. I just want him to be proud of me, right? If I got to have game and I'm on this side, you right, of Christianity, not in the word. I won't about it then. I was like, what? I said it, what? Right? I don't get it. I don't get the manipulate. And I know it comes from brokenness. That's why my heart goes out to it. The strong pride that comes out of us not dealing with our trauma and being in churches that don't deal with the heart, right? They don't deal with the enemy of your soul. So that's going to be your trauma. That's going to be how you got broken, right? Why you haven't yet to reconcile with your past. Why you are still making forgiveness an option. Baby, God ain't even hear your prayers when you don't forgive. They just like go like this. They like go above my head and then they come back down to the ground. And he'd be like, she ain't ready. She ain't ready. She's still mad about what the lady said in the 3rd grade. Ain't no 3rd grade lady that important. I'd be like, what 3rd grade lady? I have released her to my forgiveness. How you gonna want God to forgive you when you can't forgive people? This ain't no time to be on the pulpit talking about how hard it is to forgive. Don't put that out there. No, it ain't. Watch your words. But anyway, so yeah, these people, as they were saying on Dr. Phil, that they are just persuasive, right? Manipulative. They hide info. They bait and switch on you, right? They excommunicate you, and then you're shunned once you leave. You should have been there no way. Shoot. I was somewhere and I know for about 4 days straight, I was just on my face. I should have never went there. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't hear you, God. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have never been a part of that place. Oh my God, they're vipers. They're vipers. They're vipers. Forgive them, God, for they know not what they do. These organizations, to include corporations, agencies, clubs, like fitness clubs, Weight Watchers, whatever club y'all in, right? That it could be daggone the daggone Chicago Step Club, whatever y'all go to regularly and a part of, not whether you pay or not. Just be really led by the Spirit and keep asking, is this the one I join? Is this the one I stay at? Is this the one that I continue to go back to? Because they will really pressure you. They pressure you to submit. You know, they can be totalitarian. You know that word. You know, what they say only. Anytime you are seeking out a new venture, a new place, a new idea, when you go to the person who heads the place or can give you the answers, if they can give you a tour, you should be able to ask them certain questions like, are you open to criticism? Right? And if they have a problem answering stuff, well, you can't have a two-way dialogue and communicate. Like my niece is on here. She should be able to tell me anything without me being easily offended. She should be able to tell me when I'm wrong, right? She should be able to give me, because, you know, I don't really need constructive criticism, but I know that some people do. You can just criticize me, because either I'm going to receive it, because I would have checked my heart so many times before you gave me the criticism. But I'm humble enough, because I always want to be in a low place, right? A low place in humility is a high place in God. That either I already know I'm, you know, tripping, or I know enough to know that God loves me enough to use you to tell me that I'm tripping. That's how it should be. So yeah, ask any person who you're looking to be a part of a new place, and they can tell you about, you know, all of the amenities and all the bells and whistles, or whatever they can tell you. You should be able to ask them. You know, you don't want them to be the only one that's always leading, guiding, talking. You know, the one that's always deciding and making all of the making all of the moves, if you will, or decisions. You know, you should at least be able to have a thought, right? Remember we talked about earlier, critical thinking. There's a reason why the people oftentimes of the South, in the South, you know, are easily manipulated, easily controlled, because if you went to school, grade school, all the way up to college and postgraduate, you were taught not to think, meaning you just believe what you read, believe what the professor, all the way to the teacher, tells you. And we go into our walk with the Lord the same way. Instead of saying, God, what is going on? What do I need to know about this? What does your word say about this? What was your original intent of the word? What is underneath the context of this scripture, right? Show me, you know, so that I can interpret it right. You know, help me to not misinterpret scripture. I want to comprehend and retain, you know, what is right in what I'm hearing, not just what's being repeated, or oftentimes opinion is added with a lot of pastors, and depending on the purity of their heart, their opinions don't line up with scripture. Even we have to be careful not to, what's that word? The P word, help me, Holy Ghost. When you round up, or if you will, or your I'll tell y'all later because I'm getting tired. It's a word that I'm trying to say. When you kind of just summarize scripture, right? And you know, yeah, you gotta have to understand not to do that, but so often. And so I think that's all for tonight. You know, I again am making sure that I go forward and don't get distracted with you know, the cares of the world. For me, that just means the daily tasks, and I try to always allow God to prioritize my day and let His schedule be my calendar, right? But as a wife and a bonus mom and all the business owner and all the other things, a friend and daughter, you know, there's things that come up, or things that we have to do. And so I just pray for me as I, you know, obey and get this stuff launched, right? The code of ethics. Because again, I'm getting threats, and you better not, you better not come back to my house. Y'all about to stop coming to my house. All right, but yeah. So these things again need to be in place, because when people out here acting real, playing dumb, like certain stuff, others are not aware of the same things that you're aware of. So, okay, which further supports why there should be things in place, right? Okay. I'm going to give you an example, too, of someone, and the Holy Ghost reminded me of this. There was a young girl I met, and the way I met her was just not planned. She responded to a post I put in a Facebook group, and we met, and we were talking about some different leaders, some very, mildly popular, at least regionally, some internationally, some young, some younger. And we both knew the same leaders, church leaders. And she had told me how she had visited a particular church. And this was like 2018. And she said she didn't go back, listen to this, because the leaders had introduced her to a guy that lived near her, and he was having car trouble. And, they introduced in a way as to say, well, maybe you guys can ride together. That's problem number one. So she commenced to, at times, as she told me, check on with the person and arrange with the gentleman, to pick him up when needed. But she said she was often met at that church with the leaders coming back asking her where he is. And when she would be like, I don't know, I ain't talked to him. If he don't need no ride, we don't talk, right? He ain't said nothing last night to pick him up or whatever. And they would be like, right? And so she said after countless times of the leaders, right? Not the disciples, not the other lovely people in the congregation. The leaders saying that over to nauseam. She said it was just so much that she didn't go back. Now if we don't know that's out of order, because God forbid if he would have touched her inappropriately, God forbid if he would have sexually assaulted or killed her, right? I know that some of y'all, whether you grew up Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Muslim, I'm sure there were certain safeguards in place to protect all individuals in a church. Come on, right? I think it's convenient when you say that you don't have those things or you don't desire to have those things. Again, I think they should be written. I even know places before you can even serve in ministry, they have you do a little T&C, some terms and conditions type thing, right? Which is smart. But let's say there are those who don't think that they think that's bondage, right? They don't think you should do that, because we're community and we love each other, and okay. But if you see people operating in unclean spirits, then we're not as community yet as you, right, aspire for us to be. If we're not with one accord on who we are in Christ, right, our identity being his identity, not what people say, not our skin color, not our traumas, but we have resolved in our head, reconciled with our past, forgiven ourselves and everybody else, that we understand that he's not mad at us, and he loves us with the everlasting love. And that it's a process, and you just repent and confess your sins, knowing that we're the object of God's affection. So our image has to be as such, right? So if you're teaching that, let's say, But the manifestation of the leaders, the people there, still don't know who they are. So they lie, they vie, they compete, they operate in mixture, right? Come on. This, you sound like suspect when you say there's not certain things in place. What you mean there ain't certain things in place? And I'm going to leave you with this. Has anybody ever heard, and I could go on about certain things that are in the scripture about certain demonic spirits in the realm of darkness. So we have the light, right, which is God is the Father of lights, and we understand what the light is, right? The light of Christ, right? And there are two kingdoms, right? We have the kingdom of this world, which is Satan, and the kingdom of darkness. And there's certain people, the enemy, Satan, will use us against ourselves, right? We just have a bad day, so we grumpy all day, okay? And then, we repent if we, cut somebody off, if we were curt, if we were short with our husband, our spouse, our parents, our children, right? Because you have to understand, even with children, you're growing even in parenting, right? And so you should be able to talk to your children, ask for forgiveness often, just as you should your spouse. But there are also other types of demonic principalities, as the scripture tells us about, rulers in dark places. And you have to be able to discern when a person is operating in dark arts, right? Y'all out here fighting about, certain things, whether you should buy them or not, right? Or participate them or not. But I'm not. I know, not to have certain things around me and certain products, right? But with that in mind, there are people who, dark arts, right? They believe in those types of things. Black magic, white magic, right? Crystals, right? And the list goes on and on. And so I think we can agree that that's called the occult. And in the occult practices, even in scripture, when you look at witchcraft, which is in scripture. Now, y'all don't have to believe me, but I would suggest you just Google divination, witchcraft, what they did and how they dealt with it during the in the Bible, right? Soothsayers, all that's there, right? And I could go into a whole lot more, but I want to just leave you with this. A lot of people who understand these things, they understand, certain spirits. You hear Jezebel is sometimes overstated and thrown around way too much because, number one, men can operate in a Jezebelic spirit, not just women. And it's not what many of our the people of the faith before us. It's not whether you have on red lipstick and long nails and and how you dress. It's really a strong pride that you think that you have the power and control. Using objects and lighting candles and planting things on people, or lotions and oils, and writing their names out, right, and saying demonic chants, right, over their names and their date of birth to get the results that you want, right? You want to control everything that you've said that you wanted in those chants about them, whether it's sexually, whether it's, trying to take their position at work, get them fired, whatever it is, you are at home, right? Usually secretly, unless you're doing it with people who are about that life or grew up in it, Ouija boards, all of that stuff, right? But if you in the church, okay, since I said earlier that most of my code of ethics is going to be for Christians, if you are mixing extra biblical practices that it's talked about so much in the scripture, and how God detests it and why. If you are mixing, right, things together, right, at home, and then trying to plant them on people at church, or use their hair as a part of your ritual, you're sending hexes. And this is a good time to talk about this as I get ready to go, because they talk about it on reality shows. You know, they be like, you trying to send a hex to me? You trying to send a spell to me? Right? And now don't nobody be like, spell? They just be like, yeah, I did. Or they just be looking, like, how you found out. But anyway, they talk about it in the music. Some of the younger people in my life, right? Friends, children's, cousins, whatever, you know, they talk about how, or I overhear them singing songs and I get real far away from them as quickly as I can because I don't come into agreement with the words they're speaking. And you have to be real sensitive in the spirit. But now they don't even hide it, right? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people would look at you sideways and be like, if I don't believe in that stuff, then it won't happen to me. That ain't what the scriptures say, though, right? That's how you know people don't read their word. So I say that to say, imparting, and I guess it's in alignment or aligned with all the backlash and all the, what's that word that don't mean nothing to me? Other than in the court of law. What's that word? Threats. All the threats. And all other things that are just so displeasing to God for those of us who say we love him, and then you still be wicked and evil. Like, how does that work? Like, you really don't fear God, and it's sad. So with that being said, guys, just be aware of certain spirits in operation. Learn of them. Be familiar with them. Learn how they manifest. Learn how to pinpoint them. Pick them out. See them in the spirit. Just ask God to, take the spiritual blinders off, of your eyes and, unstop your ears so you can hear what he is saying, right? Because he really will give those who love him and live upright before him secret intel, right? He'll tell you stuff. He'll warn you, or he'll prepare you, or tell you after the fact. But as long as you know, right, that doesn't really matter, when you find out. And as you walk with him closely and, you confess daily, any of your sins, and you mean it really with a contrite heart, right? Not, I'm going to go back out here and do it right after I say it. And we've seen that, I'm not going to ever drink again. You drunk on the bathroom floor throwing up. God, if you just help sober me up, I'm not going to ever drink again. I'm not talking about it like that. I'm talking about you are really living for God, sold out. I ain't say go to church. It ain't about how often you go to church. It's about living an upright life. It's about being in right standing with God, right? I'm not saying to forsake the fellowship, right? Understand what God means. Set your gaze and keep your gaze on God. Seek him daily, right? Just sit in his presence, right? And just let him love on you as you, cry out to him and love on him, because he's just that good. But yeah, there's many people out here taught, when we talk about Jezebels, and, different things that are going on in the church, even different spirit spouses. Look that up, what a spirit spouse is. If you don't know what a soul tie is, you look at, enchantment, right? Nebuchadnezzar, all those things, right? They're all in the Bible. And, whether it's a siren spirit or a marine spirit, understand how to recognize these things, because they're, of course, in many leaders. Because, right, we're in the world, and we shouldn't be of the world, but people are mixing, right, Christ with the occult. And it's not new, but fortunately, it's really out of control right now, and it's an influx of it. And so beware, beware, beware. Be careful when you choose what churches that you may visit, or if you're looking for a new church, really hear God. And if you're at a church, if you hadn't been asking him, to test the spirit, try the spirit, right? Like, what do I need to know about this person? What is going on underneath the surface? Are their words and their heart lining up with you? Is this prophecy coming from you, God? Right? Those are the things we should be asking. And we shouldn't look at how people look, because I told you, those millennials, and I think I'm Generation X. But anyway, these millennials that are, these generations coming behind us, that were unchurched, that's getting saved on the block and at the gas station, because people are just operating in our right, which is to share the love of God everywhere we go. So you should be able to have a gas pump in your hand and see somebody and say, what you know about Jesus, right? It's just that simple. You don't have to knock on doors and give people no flyers to come get to your, backpack school drive. I'm so tired of, anyway. Yeah, right? Because everywhere we go, right, we should become the scriptures, right? That's what lifestyle Christianity is, being the scriptures, right? Everywhere we go, right? You want to be at a point where people be like, you look just like your daddy, right? You look just like father, right? You represent him in a way, right, that your love walk is pure before him. I'm not saying it's going to be days where you might not, not say the things in the right way, might, and those things, as you mature in God and as he continues to develop you and mature you, and all of the different things he uses in his system and process, mostly for us all, and how he does stuff, and you develop your spiritual muscles, you'll learn, right, that some of the things, and I apologize and I repent for the church at large, we have been in error for so long, and we have lived, we have not been pure in how we have lived, right, and our lifestyle compared to what we did in church, the front, and I'm talking about leaders. I'm not talking about moral duty church goers, status quo. I'm gonna hit the church on the way to the club, and that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but I'm not I'm not here to condemn you, because God doesn't condemn you, and don't let anybody condemn you. If that's the way that he's going to get your attention, I remember way before I knew I was called to ministry, and I just thought I was just going to just be, on the ground and fighting everybody's battles when it came to unjust things. I kind of would have probably went in the way of, what's Mallory? Y'all know, from New York. Tamika. Y'all know who I'm talking about? And what's her organization called? I know it when I hear it. I think it has the word united in it. Until freedom. And then I'm the freedom igniter. Okay, that's good. But anyway, do know that we just got to be careful. We have to really, really let our yay be yay and our nay be nay. We have to love what God loves and hate what God hates. Because, baby, it's a lot of people out here that if you knew what was going on behind the scenes, honey, shy. So, yeah, just clean up your own house, right? And documentation. If your mama or whoever raised you didn't tell you to always document. And so that's all I really have for tonight. I hope that I've helped someone. I hope that something I said will answer something that you might have been bringing before God, or if there's been something in your heart that you wanted to do for God and you thought that it was maybe trivial, or you didn't know what place and space you would be able to launch it or develop it or invent it, then I hope today, coming from me, a healing evangelist, a soul mender, and a vlogger, writer, speaker, brand ambassador and the like, you know, if I can incorporate codes of ethics fairly much so for Christians in my organization here at Surrett Pierre Enterprises, then surely, and that doesn't mean start a new business. That just means add certain services. Even when you look at multiple streams, that doesn't mean have multiple businesses. Not always. So don't make it more involved. Like I said, I'll probably just put a PDF on my website and then, you know, have a way they can opt in to receive an email as I develop the code of ethics structure, right? But at least I would have obeyed God. So in doing just that tonight, obeying him by coming on live, thank you for joining in on today. I'm going to give the date because people be really trying to... Listen, y'all. If many of y'all know, if you don't know how to reach me, DM me, because these goons, these spiritual goons, God bless them, they just so like punk like mafia like moles, and I don't get it. Just I don't know what I don't get it. Just how you gonna be a spy? But, okay. So they've been like reporting my videos so that they in hopes that they will be taken down. And you know, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna do a code of ethics because you didn't want to have one. Okay, so yeah, just help, just pray for the church at large. Just pray, and you know, if you pray, if you believe solely in God as the three-person triune, God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit, then you can pray for me. But if you don't believe that, then just wish me well as I go through this journey with all these vipers, these broods of vipers out here. But I love them. I do. I again have released them to the freedom of my forgiveness. I really have. But this is really for other people. Okay? It really has nothing to do with me. But it's time stamped 12/7/22. December 7th, 22. I'm Surrett Pierre. I have 11:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead and set your notifications because I'll be talking about things going forward. I have certain things that I do in other areas of streaming. I have something called the Rootcast, where we uproot and pluck up things that are impeding on our identity and who we are in Christ and how he sees us. I also have something that's called Divine Confessions and Connections, Convergence, Prayer Gathering. I've been doing it since 2016, and I for the time of March 20th, when I added it as the COVID edition, where we were dismantling and coming against COVID, I did it via conference call line and streaming. And so we're getting ready to go back and start that back up. I just took a small sabbatical, not having gotten back until recently. And yeah, and as I said lastly on the last video, God is leading me for a season and until he tells me to stop. Just like I had the COVID edition of the Divine Connections and Confessions prayer gathering, I will be having an edition called the Divine Disconnections. We'll be going over how to disconnect from people, organizations, agencies, churches, godly, the God type way, right? Where you just, kick the dust under your feet. But then there's a time, as I posted earlier today, and you have to know the voice of God because you talk to him and you serve him wholeheartedly. And he talks back to you, often. You have to know when he's told you to let him fight the battle for you. And you also have to know when he tells you to pop off. Right? Right? There's a time to be silent. There's a time to be quiet, as it says in Ecclesiastes. And for me, it's a time to be about it. So as I take my bowed butt to bed. God bless you. God keep you, and may his face shine upon you and bring you peace. This is Sarette Pierre signing off for today. Go ahead and hit those notifications on whatever platform you're tuning in from so that you can keep up with me and I can keep up with you. I love you lots. I love you to life. And until next time, peace.